Welcome to the, I was going to say podcast, and then it stuck in my head, and it wasn't. This is the live Q&A with myself. I'm Wayne Bettess, and this is Mr. Andy Jones.
Welcome.
Thank you, everyone, for taking the evening out to come and listen to myself and Andy and see where the discussion leads us. I've totally gone off any level of planning that I did. I don't generally plan, but I did want to get a few key points off, and my mind has gone completely wayward. But for those that don't know, I'm Wayne. I'm the founder of Off the Tools. I have been running Off the Tools, I think it's nearly 8 years now. So it's a long time, and I'll keep this very brief. It was born out of a necessity that I needed help, and I couldn't find anybody that had done or was doing or had been through what I had at that point in time, which then prompted me to start Off the Tools. It's evolved a lot over the years, which I'm not going to go into. This isn't a Who's Wayne session. But ultimately, I am a tradesman. You know, I run a trades business. I've had a fairly large business, and I've been very small and everything in between. And for the last 8 years, I have been focused on building Off the Tools into a community of like-minded tradesmen across the UK and in continental as well. We did have a Canada client as well, but he's not with us now. But so I can say we're an international organization. And obviously in the last 12 months, 18 months, Andy has joined the team. So obviously there's a whole podcast, you know, we do podcasts every week. You can learn more about that. But Andy, just introduce yourself, and then we'll get tonight going.
Yeah. So as Wayne just said, Andy Jones, and I have been involved with Off the Tools. Well, I've been involved with Off the Tools for about 3 years, and I started out as a mentee of Wayne, but through the action that I've taken and obviously advice and just my nature as well, I started a heating business from scratch just over 3 years ago. No client base or anything, from scratch, and working with Wayne have been able to grow it to quite a sizable team, sizable business, and it's pretty much now a self-running business as well. I still have the business, it's still live. And then what we was finding is a lot of lads were asking me for advice, and it sort of became a natural evolution for us to start working together. We have sort of differing angles and plans of attack on certain things, but then have the same viewpoints higher up in the scale, if that makes sense. So we can bring different types of value, but obviously sort of meet in the middle. And again, having that live business allows a little bit of sort of skin in the game, as they would call it, because strategies that are implemented are current live strategies, things like that. So yeah, that's a brief intro on me. As Wayne said, there is a couple of long podcasts on my journey, personal and business wise. If you want to jump on that, just head over to the Off the Tools website and hit the tab for the podcast.
And we are taking shit to the next level today, right? Look, you can see a big QR code on your screen. You can scan that to get some free stuff. I was meant to. I'm too slow. I was meant to put the website one up when Andy was talking about the website. So if you do want to go to the website, you can just scan
straight to the website. Yeah, plenty of tabs on there about all the obviously what we can do, what we can offer, a little bit about Off the Tools, the link to the podcast. If you're not following the podcast, why not? Weekly releases, completely free, just as this is. And yeah, a little bit about Off the Tools. Do you want to lead, or do you want me to go?
Yeah, no, I just want to be frank with people. Like, you know, obviously Off the Tools is our business, right? But for the next hour, you are getting 100% anything you ask for. Question, if I can answer it or help you or provide any sort of value, you are getting myself and Andy completely free of charge. There's no catch, you know, there's no freaking trying to sneak in a little sale here or there. You know, I've always been transparent, right? If you want to join, go to the website, right? If after tonight you think, do you know what? These guys actually talk a bit of sense. I actually quite enjoyed it. I'm going to join. Great. You know, we're always welcoming new members. There's no limited spaces or you know, all we can take on 2 extra clients this week. Bullshit to all that sales bullshit, right? So as we go through tonight, you might hear me say, well, in Alliance, that's what we do. That's not me trying to upsell, right? That's just me talking naturally and freely. Obviously, I will encourage you all to go and join. But if you don't, happy days. You've got us for an hour. Use us. And on that note, right, tonight is going to be very, very, very painful for me and Andy and you guys watching and the ones watching on demand later, you know, if you guys don't get involved. So hopefully you're all being able to hear us. It sounds like it has. I put a question in and people have said yes. Just give me a thumbs up or a hello, just so I know that there's some people in the room and that I'm not just talking to myself. So Mark's already done it. Neil's done it. Tyler's done it. So I know there's people there, but let's just, the more you engage, obviously the better tonight is going to be for all of us. And we, like I said at the beginning, we don't have a script, right? Look, I'll show you what my script for today is. Right? Literally, it's not even open on the right page. It is literally a couple of bullet points in a page, right? So unless you guys ask questions or tell us about a situation, you know, tonight won't go very well. So please ask away, post in the comments. Obviously, you can post it in there. If you are confident and you want to jump on camera, you know, just write in there and we'll throw you on camera and we can have a discussion face to face. I'm happy either way. Technically, I'm pretty sure that is possible. Yes, it is. So I should have checked that first. So does anybody, sorry, Andy, I'll pass back to you for a sec.
Yeah, man.
Because I know you was going to say something.
Yeah, just obviously, yeah, jump on. If you've got a question, ask it. As Wayne's just said, we're here, both here for an hour. Any questions? No question. There's no such thing as a silly question. You might ask a question that somebody else was like, shit, oh yeah, I would have liked to have asked that. So we're obviously, you know, we're all tradesmen here, as far as I'm aware. It's a tough gig. It can be a lonely gig a lot of the time. It's not, you know, outside of the Alliance, it's our understanding and knowledge that not many people reach out and ask for help in a lot of situations. So that's why we're here tonight. We're here to help answer the question as best we can. We both bring, obviously, a wealth of knowledge, as I said before. That, you know, Wayne's done this for quite some time. I've done it. I've been in the game for quite some time, and I've been in business while not as long as Wayne. I've also then, as I said before, got a slightly different angle on it. Moved quite substantial speed. So there's thoughts of, you know, I would like to be at a certain point, but I feel like it's too far away. You know, there's an infinite number of questions. But as Wayne said, we've got an hour. Jump out with them questions. It might be something someone else has thought about. Has not thought about, but it triggers them when you ask. So that's, I think, yeah, just if you're thinking about something, you can go on camera if you want, as Wayne said, but a lot of guys aren't used to this sort of thing. We do run weekly sessions in Off the Tools that are like this, but everyone jumps on camera because obviously it is a community. A lot of the lads have already met each other in the in-person events that we do every quarter, where it's you know, a bit of camaraderie and lads getting together. Yeah. But in this situation, obviously you're behind a screen, so you're not got that awkwardness of showing your face if you don't want to. So yeah, just, yeah, if you've got a question, if someone wants to kick us off, if not, I'll ask her.
It looks like they need a little bit of warming up. I think they're like an old motor. They're going to take a little while for it all to kickstart.
Usually the way with these, isn't it? Nobody wants to go first. It's buffering a lot at my end. Seems all right. Hey, does anyone else have any trouble?
Is anyone else having any problems? I know I disappeared for 2 seconds. I don't know what happened there, but it does seem all to be working. If you're on a phone, sometimes it can struggle a little bit to firm up the connection, but normally once it firms up, it normally is fairly clear. So we'll just wait to hear if anyone else is having any buffering issues. But
Yeah,
as no one is coming forward quite yet, let's poke the bear a little bit. What would you say, Andy, has in your time being obviously at the beginning of Off the Tools and now as a coach and partner as part of Off the Tools, one of the biggest sort of problems that people seem to join alliance with, you know, when they first reach out to us and come on?
Got to be profit on it, lack of rather.
Yeah.
I'm working 14-hour days, 6 days a week, but I never seem to have any money.
Yeah, I would agree.
Here we go, Max trading. We'll revisit that in a minute. We'll hit Max first. Yeah. So, with your magic, star it, send it up. Plumbing and heating. I'll read it out for people in case they're listening. I have a plumbing, bathroom, and heating business. I'm struggling to decide, do I grow it so I can get off the tools? I'm also in the early stages of starting an information business, as you guys have both been in the situation I'm in now. What would be your advice on, do I scale? Do I try and just focus on a single aspect of the plumbing, etc., etc.? I'll give my take on it, and then Wade can give his. I'm a big fan of niching. My heating business is specifically a service and repair business. It's niche. And if you do an AI search of our business, it will come up that it's a service and repair business exclusively, and it's very specialized in that. Bathrooms are one of the most obvious ones to address that question on. Trying to do bathrooms while doing heating does not go hand in hand. If you're doing any of the breakdown related work, if you're only doing big installations, it's different. But as someone who'd been there in the past, had a bathroom company when I got my gas. I went straight into breakdown. You cannot do reactive breakdown if you're stuck on a bathroom. So my advice on that situation would be to niche down one or the other, plumbing or heating. Bathrooms or heating. Don't try and do both. Decide what you think you will be most effective as, what you do the best as. We've got lads in Alliance that just do bathrooms, and they do very good money on them because they've elevated their business to be positioned as a premium business. If you think you do shit up bathrooms, stick to doing the shit up bathrooms and make it the best version of it. If you think that the heating side of things is better for you, I'm not sure if you've got a team. Bathrooms can be challenging if you're doing them on your own. Niche down on one or the other. And then look to build that business so it's a bit more outsourced. And then obviously you're saying you've got another skill set with an information business. What you perhaps might want to do is to scale the heating or the bathroom business so that it's almost self-running, and then you can put more of your time onto the other business. You could obviously do crossovers of how you fund them, whether one can help fund the other and things like that. But if you try and spread yourself too thin, you will never be an expert in that individual field.
Yeah. So fundamentally, I agree with Andy on that point. And just to be clear, we don't always agree. This isn't just a love fest of us two agreeing with each other, because there will be moments where we disagree quite often. I've not really got anything more to add on the plumbing and bathroom side. I think you need to, like what Andy said, you need to focus in what you enjoy, what makes you money. Don't change question yet. I'm still on it. Sorry, I was reading it.
It's Max answer, mate. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So I want to focus more on the second part of the question, the information. But I'm not asking for any details, but just lessons that I've learned. So from the age of 21, I think I started my first business, maybe 22. I have always had secondary businesses, second, third, fourth, fifths, you know. And one thing that I've learned massively over the last 20 years of trying to build businesses and doing side hustles, as they're known in the modern day terms, is the focus gets split very, very easily. So I now try to make sure that I live by this sort of principle of 70% of my time has to be focused on my main income, my main job, my main role in my life, which is Off the Tools. Then I allow 15% for my secondary business, and then I allow 5% for my any ideas, you know, anything that any new ideas and bits and bobs. I think that works out about 105%, but you get the gist, yeah? Or it works out 95, but you get the gist. In essence, the main portion of your time, this is where having good time management is very, very key. So I run a Google Calendar alongside other calendars, but Google Calendar is what I call my non-negotiable diary. And when I put something in that non-negotiable diary, I treat it the same as I would to go and service Mrs. Smith's boiler or to go and do the fuse board inspection at Mr. Jones's down the road. I treat it as an appointment that I'm not going to let the customer down, so I'm not going to let myself down. And the reason I mention that is because when you're trying to do things outside of your sort of normal job, so to speak, you can quickly lose a lot of focus in one area. So if you take anything away, Mark, from that, that would be a key bit of advice I would advise. And also, the cleaner you can make your main business, and what I mean by cleaner, so the more profitable, the more systemized, the more automated, the easier it is to leverage time away from that to work on other projects and other ideas and other passions that you might have. I think that let me see what Mark's reply was. I can't talk and read, as you might be able to tell. So I'm just going to quickly read this. I love doing big bathroom projects. I don't do reactive for reasons you have mentioned, and yes, do nice bathroom work. Also a one-man band. So I just ask it, Mark. So why when you introduced your question, why did you say that you do everything if bathrooms is what you like to do? Is it just supply and demand? Like you don't get enough bathrooms? Is it that you've just sort of fallen into the status quo of being a general plumbing and heating business that does it all? Or just curious really as to if it was by choice or whether it was just by habit.
And do you do the entire project yourself? Because again, we're going to lean into potentially outsourcing certain elements of the job. And then obviously, as Wayne did the split, if you're, for example, just throwing it out there, let's say you're doing rip out Monday, first fix Tuesday, then the tiler goes in on a Wednesday. That Wednesday could be where you work on your technology business. And then you back in second fix and finishing on the Thursday, Friday, just for an idea.
Yeah,
there's a bit of a split down. If bathrooms work well for you and you do a good job, double down on them, I would say, Mark, because they're actually the easiest thing to market in the plumbing and heating game, because most people will buy something like the bathroom on looks. So you can create really nice portfolios. Yeah. You can do a lot of social media. Nobody gives a shit what it looks like when you're servicing a boiler. Mm-hmm. However, on a bathroom, look, you're doing start to finish. Look how it looked before. Double down on the bathrooms, Mark. Try and outsource some of it, even if it's just bringing in a labourer to then learn how to rip out, cap, drain down, prep the room, maybe board it, things like that. So,
and in essence, buy yourself time to work on the other project that you've got. Hopefully that answered your question, Mark. To go back, so you've already spotted it. Well done.
Yeah.
Can we talk about elements of pricing? I find the biggest hurdle when costing up a job is day rates, /hourly rates, and then what percentage of profit to add. What is acceptable margin to add? Can I start this one?
Go for it.
So there is no acceptable
pricing stuff.
yeah. Those that watch it or listen to us, pricing is a very strong subject that we love to talk about. So there's no, in my opinion, there's no set margin for a small business to work off. I'm a firm believer, and which is why if you scan that QR code on the screen or go to the website and go to the free resources page, there's something called the pricing calculator. There's a whole webinar on the pricing calculator on the website, a whole hour and a half discussion. So I'm not going to go into the finer details of what that pricing calculator is, but I'm going to explain the principle of it because it sort of answers the question here. So in the pricing calculator, it basically tells you to put all your costs in, so all your overheads, what you should be earning as a qualified sparky plumber, landscaper, whatever industry you're in. There's what you could give up today and go and get a job and earn. As a heating engineer, I could easily walk into a job between 45 and 55 grand a year tomorrow. So my business should, as at the minimum, be paying me that level of money. Then there's another section where you add your desired profit. And I did it in percentages and round numbers because I believe small businesses should work on round numbers. And in essence, so let's say hypothetically, say your overheads are £2,000 a month. You need to pull out £4,000 a month for what you could earn as a normal engineer. So we're now at 6K. And then let's say you want to have, at the end of the year, you want to have, say, 20 grand in the bank, 24 grand, say, so divide that by 2. That makes it about 8 grand a month that the business would have to generate. And all you do, basically, all the calculator does, it does factor in like pensions and other cool bits and bobs. So it is better than how I'm explaining it. But what it does is it reverse engineers it. So you put all them numbers in. So you put your actual costs, the actual money that you should be earning, then what you would be happy with if we fast forwarded 12 months and was like, that's what you've earned as profit on top of your salary. And then basically you set how many hours you want to work a day or how many are achievable, because, you know, unless you're on day rates every single day, especially in smaller trades like plumbing, heating, electrical, you know, we do charge by the hour a lot of the time. So what the calculator does is it spits out, you put in, so I for a heating company, I recommend 5 hours is realistically what you could bill most days. And then realistically, it's like 46, 44 weeks of the year, because you've got to have obviously holiday, you've got to have sick time, you're going to have downtime, and etc. Then what that does is that spits you out an hourly, a daily, a weekly, and I think it's a monthly figure that you need to hit to achieve the outcomes that you've proposed. You know, you forecasted what profit you want to make and everything. So then when you come to actually pricing that job, it becomes very simple. So just for round numbers, let's say it's £100 an hour that you have to charge per job, 5 hours a day, or whatever you feel is suitable for your industry. All you then have to do when you're pricing is obviously work out your materials. So there's always going to be that sort of element that needs to be worked out. So however you do that, you know, and then all you need to do is factor in how many hours that you are going to need to bill for it. So it becomes a very simple equation of just adding the materials and adding the amount of labor time based on the numbers that are in the calculator. So it takes any guesswork out of it, in my opinion, because it's no longer like pulling a figure out of thin air. It's in black and white, you know, that's what you need to earn and that's what you need to charge. And if you don't, you're not going to hit your target, you know? So it takes any sort of emotion out of it. Any small business knows that feeling when you go around Mrs. Let's make a random name, Mrs. Patel, and she's an 85-year-old lady, and you're there for 5 minutes, and you're like, oh, I can't really charge 130 quid for that or whatever. So you go, oh, just bung me 20 quid, and you walk out. Well, a business can't operate like that, unfortunately. You know, we have running costs, we have personal costs that need to be funded by the business, you know, indirectly. And it basically strips emotion out of it. It makes it black and white, and it just simplifies. So if I go to a job and I calculate, right, I think that's going to be 4 days work, I don't have to think, well, how much do I charge per day? What do I need to do? I know my figures. So I just go, 850 quid is just a random number, times by 4, boom, there's the labor, there's the materials. I never present it separately. I present it all as a package. And then away that quote goes. I think I've covered everything I think on that. Hopefully that answered some of your questions, Alan. If there's more to it, then please ask away, and I'll let Andy take the mic for a second, because as you can tell, we have to wrestle each other to get the mic sometimes.
So yeah, from perhaps a different angle, Alan. So just grabbing that last sentence there, what's an acceptable margin to add? So we add 50%, so everything we supply. Sometimes something that people maybe not look at from the angle that you should as a business is the cost to supply something like a part. So let's say it's something like a fan on a boiler. When obviously you should be quoting costing for a fault find. But once you've come away from that and you've done your job report, you will then need to spend time and energy, whether it's you or whether it's an admin person, calculating the cost of that part. So they'll be contacting the merchant, getting the price for the part. Then if the job's accepted, you then have to go to the merchant, collect the part, use your own fuel, your own running costs on your vehicle, etc., collect the part, and then go and install it. If the part's wrong, it's on you. If you fit it and it's faulty, it's on you. That's why you always need to add a strong margin on your parts. We had 50% markup. It breaks down at about 33 point something % margin. So never, if you're supplying parts at cost, you're costing yourself money to do it. Don't be scared of customers saying, oh, well, I can get it for that. If you want to get it for that, knock yourself out, mate. You drive to the merchants, you get it, and you take all of the risk. If we arrive on site and you've got the wrong part, then you're still getting billed for us being here. If you get on site and the seal's missing, you're still getting billed. So that's one angle with the margin. In terms of day rates and hourly rates, this may be what you're asking, it may not. Something we found time and time again, some guys struggle with is, as Wayne's just said, you should have a standardized cost. A lot of the guys that come through to the Alliance, especially ones that have been running for a few years, have costs that are very scattered. So it'd be like, well, if I'm changing a tap, doing an outside tap, I'll charge this much. If I'm servicing a boiler, I'll charge this much. But if they both take the same amount of time, you need to be charging the same amount of money. Yes, there's some nuances of, certain jobs have greater growth value to the business, and we're not here to go too deep into that. But it costs the same for the business to send the same engineer out to do the same, to spend the same time on site. If you're not charging the same money, then you're costing yourself money. And we sort of challenge people, don't we? Say, well, if you're charging 150 quid for a boiler service and 100 quid to fit the outside tap, why are you not doing more boiler servicing? Because it's, you know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't bother doing the lesser stuff. And I'm just going to roll slightly into what Kieran said there about doing work for builders. Things like that. And again, this is something that triggers a lot of people, but I'm always open and honest with everyone. We take payment for all work that we do in the heating business up front. Someone books a boiler service, they pay up front. If someone books a fault find, they pay up front. If someone books a smart start, they pay up front. Someone books a boiler install, they pay up front. Now, again, I'm not here to go too deep into how you need to structure your business to make it you able to do that. Admin team, software, and good reviews. But that's just another way that if you're going to work for builders, letting agents, things like that, yes, we continue doing the work, but you have to protect yourself. You have to protect your business. And if somebody wants to play funny buggers like that, then as you say, you just don't work for them anymore. If you take payments up front, when you have transparent pricing that Wayne's just spoke about, and you use something like the free pricing calculator, you know exactly what I need to be. Because of my business, I need to be charging a minimum of £120 an hour. And then I need to charge a minimum of £650 per day, for example. Once you have that in place, if a builder, for example, rings you up and wants you to do some work, yeah, no problem. What's the work? Send me the scope of works. Well, that's going to take me 3 days. That's 3 lots of 650. There's an invoice. That's, again, what we're about in Off the Tools is very much about turning your business, quote unquote, business into a business and treating it like a business. Otherwise, like Wayne just suggested, made a good example there, and we've all done it. You nip to a job on the way home, or just gives 20 quid. Now, if you were treating that like a business, that with software, that would be booked in as a job on the way home, admittedly, but as a job, it's going to be booked in the diary for an hour, and this is our pricing. And guys lose so much fucking money by doing that situation that you cannot afford to do it in 2026. It costs too much. Cost of living's too high. Look at fuel in itself. If you deviate 20-30 minutes off your journey home to go and see this lady and then say, oh, I've not been here long, give us 20 quid. Well, it's just cost you 20 quid to go to the job. So we shouldn't have bothered. And then what happens then is she tells her mate, oh, just use him, you only charge me 20 quid. And then you end up with a shitload of 20 quid customers. So yeah, I'm not going to go too deep into that. As you can tell, I'm quite passionate. And we actively want to make sure that the lads in the Alliance, to make sure that they aggressively up their pricing structure, because most lads' pricing stuck in pre-2020, let alone pre-2023 or whatever like that. And the biggest thing we get back from them is, shit, I've just upped my prices, nobody said anything. Customers aren't going to tell you that you're an absolute bargain, because they're just going to let you roll with it. So
on that note, quickly, Alan put that he don't know if he'd be able to add that level of margin, and yeah, you might not be, but this is the big caveat for everybody, right? Unless you try, you don't know, right? So we're currently working with this guy. He's quite a big outfit. I think he's got 14 engineers, 4 office staff, I think. And the first thing we looked at was his pricing, and then we said, look, simply he come back with the same thing. Oh, I don't know if I'll be able to charge this. Everyone does at first. So we said, right, on your whiteboard in the office, the next 10 new customers that ring up, give the new pricing. Guess what? All 10 booked in, didn't even say a word. So we did it again, and the same results, so he's now on a progress now of squeezing them prices up until he finds where that level is in his area. So yes, granted, right? You might try it and people say no, and then you record that information and you adjust accordingly. But if you haven't tried it, then I'm not listening basically until you've tried it with at least 10 to 20 customers and let the data decide on what the pricing is, not what you feel. Because what you feel, like Andy said, the customer's never going to come to you and say, yeah, stick 30 quid on that bill, please. You were worth it. They're not. But if you're 30 quid more expensive, but you provide good value and you do everything like that we've talked about in the last 30 episodes of the Off the Tools podcast, because it's not easy. I'm not trying to say just stick your prices up and everyone will accept. You've got to be providing good levels, across the business, across communication, across systemizing, automating, actual delivery of that job. You can't just be a charlatan that's ripping people off and think you're going to get away with it, because you're not. So there's a lot of back end stuff that needs to be in place to facilitate that. But it's a journey that you are starting today. If this is your first time here and the first time you've ever been involved with people like me and Andy, coaches and mentors, then that now's the start, and if you can just do a little bit week after week, before you know it, you're miles ahead of the competition in your local area. Because quite frankly, sorry, I'm going off subject and we will get to Cam's Forbes question. He posted it about 20 minutes ago. So sorry, Cam. Quite frankly, in the trades industry, the bar isn't that high to stand out, right? All you really need to do is do what you said you're going to do, turn up on time, do a decent job, be there if there's a problem, and, communicate well, answer the phone, get back to people, don't leave people waiting. You cover off those basics, you're already in the top 20%, and they're just simple things that can be done. But anyway, Andy, read us out Cam's question.
Just one last point as well. You're saying that they don't think they could up the margin to 50%. Again, I would challenge that. Why? Where does that thought come from? If you're supplying a part from a boiler and there is a cost to the business to supply that part, why not? Why wouldn't you charge for it? If it takes up time, you know what I mean? There's this if you've got to drive to a merchant's, fuck around in the merchant's, collect it, then drive to the job, you need to bill for that time, because if you don't, then that time could have been spent on another job. Again, there's a lot of this thing in the trade where everyone's a little bit stuck behind the times of trying to serve the customers so well to try and keep them in your fold. But it's a business at the end of the day, and it needs to be run by that. It's like a lot of lads do, they'll go out and do a free fault find in the hope to win the repair. But if you don't win the repair, you've just wasted an hour. You'd be better just sticking to lines of work where you can charge straight away. Someone, wants you to come out and assess how many sockets they need in a house. Well, yeah, we can come out and we can do that. But there's a cost to it. There always needs to be a cost to the passed off to the customer if there's a cost to the business. There needs to be less of the one-man band thought process and more of the business thought process, which is obviously what
that point there circles back to the pricing calculator, because when you're building out the pricing calculator, you're factoring in this, obviously in an ideal world, we'd charge for quotes, everything, you charge for every minute spent. But in reality, if you're going out to quote for a fuse board or a new back garden or whatever, you can't directly charge for that. But that time is an asset of the business that is either lost because you haven't charged and you haven't factored it in, or it's factored into your overall pricing calculator, where that's why I said about realistically you only charge 5 hours a day, because, there's down hours in that time that have to be factored in the billable time to make sure that the business is running and oiled and moving. So if you can't tell, I'm passionate about the pricing calculator. So let's move on to Cam's question. So he's just starting out. He's been listening to the podcast. So brilliant, Cam. Great to hear. Just search Off the Tools podcast on any podcast provider if you haven't listened to it. He's been implementing the primitive marketing techniques. Excellent. I'll put a link to that in the chat. So anyone that wants to watch that, that's completely free. It's all about, basically, to summarize, primitive marketing is just a name I come up with. It's basically old school marketing, keeping it simple, leaflets, flyers, stickers, all of the basic stuff that we all did 20 years ago if we were in business. It was the fundamentals, but over the years it sort of drifted away. But his question is he struggling to get more work in to cover the bills? How can I get more leads so that he can join us in Alliance? Do you want to kick that off, Andy, or do you want me to roll?
Yeah, because I know we've both got slightly different angles on this as well. So again, just a touch point again on the primitive marketing. Super is a free handy tip if no one's doing it already. Anyone who uses flyers, leaflets, cards, anything like that, standard protocol. Our engineers do this. Everybody should be doing it, but 5 each side of the house you've worked on and 10 across the road on every single job. Imagine, sort of set the scene. You've got flyers that match how your van looks. You arrive on site. You do 5 each side of the job you're working on, 10 across the road. You crack on and do the job. You can do them before or after. Crack on and do the job. Then you're starting to build brand awareness. Another little tidbit on that. Imagine, again, you're going to hear me making a lot of heating analogies, but naturally that's my trade. So we're going to delve into that. But it's applicable to any game, landscape gardening, whatever it might be. Imagine this. You go and do a fault find in a single street. You pepper the street with flyers. Your van is there. You go, you do a fault find. The boiler needs some repair work and a service. You come away later on that day. Somebody in that street grabbed your flyer. Oh, my boiler's playing up. Can you come and have a look? Yeah, so it just so happens where you're in your street in 3 days' time. Let's book you in, or 2 days' time, whatever it is. You've now got 2 customers on the same street. 0 travel, 0 downtime. Such a cheap thing to implement.
All plays into the ecosystem perfectly, doesn't it?
Yeah. And there's a lot of focus now on all of the online stuff, which obviously I'm going to talk about in a second. But I think there's a little bit of laziness nowadays. And as Wayne said, the primitive stuff used to be the standard, but it's been very much neglected now because it's easy to do the online stuff. Nobody wants to put the grind in to get out trudging the streets, dropping flyers. Therefore, it's created an opening, especially if your van's sign written and you've got some exposure online with reviews and things like that. The primitive marketing is very, very powerful. And as Wayne said, he's got a whole session on that. Lead generation platforms. So I'll let Wayne take the lead with Google and the SEO stuff in a minute. I just want to talk about some of the lead generation. We have used lead generation platforms massively, and they've been very, very effective for us. There's a lot of talk on forums about lead generation platforms being, the leeches of the game and things like that. But you have to accept that they're there. So let's use Checkertrade as an example. It's a beast. It's an absolute beast. It's owned by a Canadian conglomerate, I believe, who own multiple other things. HomeServe, I want to say as well. I think they own.
I think
it's
an
absolute beast. Because of that, much like British Gas, you cannot compete with the marketing spend online. Therefore, a different angle, rather than trying to get to the top of Google, which, yes, is a great thing to try and achieve, but you will never beat British Gas or Checkertrade to the top of the Google most of the time. As a different angle and a nuanced viewpoint on it, you can get onto Checkertrade, rank really well on Checkertrade. Therefore, what have you got on a Google search when you search for, new boiler, Luton, or whatever it might be? You get British Gas, Checkertrade. So someone might click into Checkertrade, and if you're at top hit on Checkertrade, then bang, you straight in without having to spend thousands and thousands trying to beat them. You can spend a little bit less, rank close by, but you've managed to leverage the multi-million-pound marketing budget to be on there well positioned. With the right systems in place, systems that obviously we implement to all the lads in Off the Tools, you can make the most of these lead generation platforms. But you have to accept that it's 2026 and it's not 2016 where you could spend 200 quid on a lead gen platform and get 4 boiler installs. It doesn't work like that anymore. As long as you're making that strong enough return, it's not going to be absolutely amazing. You're not going to spend 200 quid and get 20 grand's worth of work. If you spend 200 quid and get 800 quid's worth of work, that's a good return nowadays, especially if you're targeting recurring work and you're doing the right follow-ups with the customers. Cam's just been saying, he's getting the reviews in. The reviews themselves are of value. So if you win a job, again, another heating example, but if you spend, let's say it costs you 50 quid to win a lead for a boiler service, but then you get 180 quid for your stripped down boiler service. You also then get a review from them. You may get a recommendation from them, but then you're also going to add them into the ecosystem of the business. They're going to get the review reminders next year for your software. The cost of that lead has now been sliced in half. If you do a boiler service for them the next year, then it gets sliced into free, and so on and so forth, not even factoring in the additional work. So just a different perspective on lead generation platforms. Think about what you can gain from it long term rather than just an immediate money for money return on investment.
It's embracing lifetime value, isn't it? You know,
Yes.
Most people, I said, no, that's wrong. Because if you're sitting there and you don't know what lifetime value is, I don't want to offend you, because for some people it's new. So lifetime value is the estimated value that customer will be to you if you do your job correctly. So in that example that Andy was on about, you know, you might have paid the 50 quid for the lead, 20 quid for the lead or whatever, and you do the one boiler service. If you look at it isolated like that, then yeah, it might not become viable to do it. But if you embrace lifetime value, you really, you know, once you've done a service for a customer, if you've done your job correctly and you have good systems and you follow up with them and you give them the repeat reminders and you make it easy for them to rebook, you should have them for 5 to 10 years. So that, let's say you paid 50 quid for the lead, right? You times that by, say, 5 to 10 boiler services as a minimum. If I told you you could earn 500 quid if you paid me 50 quid, you'd all do it, wouldn't you? You know, but so many tradesmen forget that lifetime value because there is a little bit of risk. You can't guarantee that customer will come back. Of course you can't. But business isn't meant to be risk-free. You know, there are some risks and you do have to sometimes throw some money in the pot, generate some customers and have trust in your ability to keep those customers and have them returning year after year. You know, I've been in business long enough now that we're doing second boilers for people, you know, that we fitted 15, 18 years ago, you know, so look at the lifetime value of that. So even if it cost me £100 at the time to get that boiler lead, for example, fitted them the new boiler, made money, serviced it for the last 10, 15, 18 years, and now I'm fitting them another boiler. I'll say me, my son. You know, I don't like to do the hard work now, but you know, my point there is that lifetime value is really what holds so many small businesses back. And I get it, right? When you're starting out, if you haven't got much reserves in the bank, you haven't got much work coming in, it can be very, very difficult to embrace it. But even if you can, after listening to me speak about this tonight, even if you can just think about it that little bit more when you're making decisions in what's working and how much to spend on the new website. You know, I see so many people chuck a few hundred quid at a shitty website and it doesn't work. So then a few months later, they do another one and, you know, and then before they know it, spent a couple of grand and they've ended up with a pile of shit. You know, you've got to look at the lifetime value of anything. So whether you're looking at it from the customers coming to you, but also when making decisions on advertising, look at the lifetime value of what is potential. So a website, for example, if you look at a good website should last you 3 to 5 years. If you spent, say, £3,000 on a decent website, which is what the minimum of a decent one's going to cost you, you divide that up by, say, 3 to 5 years, it becomes a very small amount each month to justify that cost. And you've got to start thinking like this. You've got to start thinking beyond the here and now, because the here and now will keep you trapped in the position that you're in. So sorry.
Stop thinking like a landlord who only think by the month. You know what I mean? They want exactly. The house because they want to keep the monthlies tight. I'm just going to answer Neil's question before we move on to Matt. So we're not forgetting about your question, Matt. I know you was before Neil, but it's just a quick one of this one. So again, this is a very business perspective. This is not your local one-man band perspective. I'm going to give you the business perspective. You should not be doing first-time fixes on boilers unless they're a care plan customer. So if you're booking in a fault find for a customer, and they've accepted the fault find quote, it's a fault find, and that's all it is. It's a diagnostics visit. You got to get that right in your T&Cs. So we do have a quoting system called Quote Lion. So this is what we use in our businesses, and it basically it's a signable quoting system. You can break it all down.
It's actually not out yet, Andy. You shouldn't have mentioned it, but never mind. You've mentioned it now.
It's an evolution of another system that we've demoed before. Yeah, but basically it's a very, very attractive looking quote that explains, a bit about your business. This is what's done on a fault find. This is what we do. If it's a very basic fault, we'll fix it on site. Think, expansion vessel problems. If it's a boiler, loose wire in a socket, whatever it might be, anything of substance you will send a quote for. If you're fitting parts out of your van while you're going to the first visit, you're costing yourselves a fortune, because you'll have given them a price, or you should have given them a price. If you're winging it, that's even worse, but we'll readdress that. If you're giving them a price for a fault find, and then you're fixing that boiler within the first, let's say the first hour, or it's running over, and then especially if you're not putting the right margins on the parts, you're losing money on the job because you're probably going to run over on your time. You're losing money on the parts because you've been out, paid out your own pocket for them, stored them in the van at a cost to you, and then you're fitting them, and then you're going to go and replenish that stock. What the flow from a business perspective should be: fault find, diagnose it, job report, customer gets it, come away. Yourself or the admin team will create a quote for the repair. Another tidbit for the heating boys: you should never be doing boiler repairs without servicing it as well. Lifetime value, recurring work, etc. Get them in the system, annual reminders. Then they will send the quote out for the repair work. Then that would be scheduled in as another job. That also allows better diary management. If you're going out to a fault find and going, oh yeah, okay, I'll fit it here, and you've got more customers booked in for the rest of the day, how are you going to manage that diary? You're going to potentially let 3, 4, 5 customers down to salvage that one customer. Your diary should look well stacked with the knowledge that how long these jobs take. I've got an hour here for a fault find. I've got an hour here for a strip down service, and so on. If you try and deviate past that, trying to salvage the customer's boiler on site there and then first visit, then you're not going to maximize on the diary, and you're not going to maximize on the profits for the business. Hopefully that answers your question, Neil. Obviously, that's something that we've spoke about on a lot of the podcasts. So feel free to head over to the podcast, have a listen through them. And if you want to reach out to me or Wayne to get more into it, then absolutely do that. Obviously, there's a whole process around that. I've tried to sort of hit it as quickly as possible. And hopefully I've helped you with that. But it is it could be completely rewriting the way you run your business. So I get that. I'll probably just hit you with a shit ton of information. But that's the professional and professional way of doing it. If you booked in British Gas for a fault find, I know that they don't do repairs anymore, so it's just a shit example. But if you go back in the day, you'd have got a slot to come out and do a fault find, and you would have got a job report from them as to what is needed, and then they would have left because they wouldn't have had the time allocation to do it. So you're doing yourself a disservice by then sticking around, and unfortunately, the customers won't really thank you for it. You know what I mean? You're a lot of the time. Another thing as well, one last point on it. So like the 20 quid example that Wayne did before, you're taking money out of your pocket and giving it to the customer. That's a really weird angle of looking at it. But every time you knock your money down, you're giving that money to the customer. And that's a really weird angle of looking at it, and people don't see it that way. It's like someone saying, oh, can you do it for 100 quid less? Oh yeah, go on. It's like going to the customer and going, right, I've done your job. Yeah, you've paid me what you said. And then, okay, here's 100 quid back. You know what I mean? Out your own pocket. So yeah, just a weird angle on that. Anyway.
Yeah.
You want to start on this one while I catch my breath?
Yeah. No worries. Just a heads up. So officially we've got 10 minutes left, but I'm happy to overrun a little bit. But if people do need to leave, obviously just do your own thing.
Yeah.
No
We'll
pressure.
try and make sure we've answered everyone's questions.
Yeah, exactly. So Matt said, my business partner and I run a plumbing and heating company. Around 80% of the work comes from builders, keeping us busy with heating systems, renewables, bathrooms, and larger projects. The challenge is where we're so busy delivering the work that we struggle to find time to attract more private customers or grow the business. We've increased our labor rates and margins are improving, but taking someone on still feels out of reach. We feel stuck. What would your next move be? So a very, very common predicament is that once you get in bed with, I don't want to pick on builders, but builders are generally the worst for it. But estate agents do the same.
Agents is another one.
Works. Yeah. It's very, very difficult to, because it becomes all consuming, because you're solely reliant. 80% you are reliant on that builder, so you know that you can't afford to piss him off or mess up on it. So 100% feel your pain. I think everybody that's been in business can probably hold their hands up and say at one point they've been in a business relationship like this, where they know they're reliant on them, so they have to bend over. They do all the stuff that they shouldn't be doing. They drop their prices. They work on the Saturday. They do all of these things to keep this guy happy. But
just one quick point. Sorry.
Yeah.
What's your day rate that you're getting from the builder, Matt? And obviously let us know if that's per head or whether this is for both you and your business partner. I'm super curious as to what you're actually getting from them per day. Yeah. I'm guessing it's a standardized thing, or let us know if it's a bit scattered. Sorry, Wayne.
That's right. Where was I going? Yeah. So there's two things I want to approach here. Okay. Tomorrow morning, Matt, you could wake up to find out that company has closed down, the owner's ill, they've gone bust, or they've just decided to go with somebody else. So at this precise moment, you're in a very, very vulnerable position. Totally understandable position. I understand how and why you're in that position, but you've got to change something because it's too vulnerable. It's sort of worse than being employed. When you're employed, you could lose your job at any point and not have any control. But there's legalities. You're obviously employed, so you get redundancy and all that sort of stuff. When you're a contractor, which in essence, Matt, it sounds like the majority basically is a contractor role, you're left very, very vulnerable. So if I think the easiest way to sort of get my viewpoint here is to put me in your shoes, and I've been there in numerous times over the years in different businesses, and I looking back at them, as years have gone on, I haven't let myself fall into those positions. So currently, I'm not in that position, but in the past, when I have been squeezed like that, I've made conscious efforts to detach myself, and in all cases it's ended up with me losing that work at some point, but under my control. Does that make sense? So basically I stopped being so malleable to them. I would be firmer on the timings and the pricing. So it sounds like you put your prices up, but there's still room there. And in essence, I would throttle them out. I'd let them make the decision, but I was upping the prices, making the lead time a little bit longer on certain things, while I was busy in the other side, building up the private customers, the repeat work, the service plans, and all of that. So unfortunately, unless you've got a load of money in the bank and you can just say, sod off, matey, we don't want your work anymore, you're going to have to manage that relationship. And you've got to accept that at some point, it may mean losing it. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully they appreciate you and they value you and they will grow. They will allow you to grow with them being a part of that, as a main contractor role. But in my experience, most don't. The minute you start to push away, they quickly sort of can smell blood and start to see, he's not as loyal as he once was. So to answer the question, I know I've gone round in circles there, I would be heavily focusing any spare time now that I have and any time that I can grab away from the day-to-day would be focusing on private homeowner lead generation. So things that obviously we spoke about earlier on some of the questions, and obviously in all the podcasts that we've done, there's hundreds of hours of there for you to listen to. In the meantime, I'd be putting money aside if you can afford to, just to create a little bit of a buffer. So with money, so money just gives you ability to make choices and less reactive. If you're sitting there now with not much money in the bank, the thought of losing that client is quite scary. If we were to fast forward, say, a year down the line, and you had 30 grand in the bank, you had 30% more private customers, so there was more cash flow coming in from that side of the business, you're looking at a completely different scenario, aren't you? You then aren't so reliant on Joe Blogg's builder, and you can make better decisions because there's some money behind you. So I would be focusing on the money side to secure yourself, because obviously I'm presuming you can't afford to lose that contract overnight, and I wouldn't recommend anyone just cutting something off like that. But you've got to prepare for the day that it does end, because ultimately, if you want to build, sorry, this is going to last a lot longer than an hour. Sorry. There's nothing wrong with what you're doing, by the way, Matt. If you're happy to do that, if you want to,
very normal as well.
Yeah, don't think that I'm sitting here demonizing anybody that does that and is happy. That is a good life. You're going to earn good money. You've got regular work. That is all perfectly admirable, right? So I'm not belittling it, but the simple fact that you're on here and you ask this question would tell me that you want more out of what you're building. So my answer is based on the fact that I'm presuming that you want more out of that business. You want more freedom. You want more money. You want more time to do what you want to do. Got a little tagline in there: more time, freedom, and profit. Boom. So yeah, that's where I would be focusing in. I would be doing a lot of listening to people like myself, and Andy, listening to the podcasts, trying to be around people that have been where you are, that are doing what you're doing, or have recently gone through it, or have and some people fail at doing it, and hearing their lessons is so valuable. So another plug out to Off the Tools Alliance, because like we said earlier, we do these discussions every single Wednesday in Off the Tools Alliance. And if you're in the Excel package, you do it on a Friday as well. So, this might be a one-off for you watching on Facebook or in the meeting now with us. But for the members of Off the Tools Alliance, these discussions, this tone of discussion is something that we are doing every single week, every Wednesday, every Friday. So for once you're in somewhere like Off the Tools Alliance, making decisions, asking questions, getting support on validating your decisions becomes a lot easier, because you're surrounded with 20, 30 other blokes that are like-minded like you,
The validation's massive. We've got that a lot, because you sort of treading water a lot of the time, and on your own, you're not quite sure. And then you think, well, I might do this. That seems like a good idea, that. And then someone says, yeah, it's a fucking good idea. I did it. I sat on it for ages, and then someone else says, yeah, I did that. I wish I'd done it sooner. And I'm just smiling, because Mark's just dropped a really, a golden nugget there to a degree of one of the suggestions I was going to make. So I was going to ask Matt, which is if he's got any of those builders, because you're in a fortunate position, Matt, that you've got 6. So even though you're saying 80% of your time is doing the builder's work, that actually then splits down, divided by 6. So that's not a particularly bad thing. It's not like it's one builder, and then if the shit hits the fan with that one builder, and you've lost 80% of your work. So 2 ways you're doing it. You could do it like Mark's done it. If you've got one that's a real fucker, I would ramp your prices up with him first. Or if they're all kind of the same, I would slightly raise your prices. So go from that 320, maybe go to 360, 380, even 400, creep it up across the board. And you might find that one shrinks back and maybe gives you a little bit less, and you might start farming out the less challenging jobs. It sounds like obviously you're doing really well to have 6 builders demanding you and your business partner do all the work for them. So that's a strong position to have.
Yeah.
And as we said before, it's quite a common thing. It's just obviously accepting that realization that you've kind of got 6 jobs rather than a business. I know you're doing the bit for yourself, but I'm just using the builders as the easier example. If you lift your prices across the board, if they all stay, then great. It's going to increase your profit, and you can square that to one side and use that for your strategy, like Wayne said. If some of them shrink back, then let's say one or two of them shrink back, but you're probably going to end up making the same kind of money because you've increased your money with across the board, and then you're making more money for less input into these builders, and it's going to create more free time for you, and then you can start using that free time to generate more of the private work. Be very, very careful on obviously how you approach them. As Wayne said, builders can be builders, and they're obviously trying to protect their own profits. But you know, just you're not really building a business when you're working for them. It's like it's a job essentially. So you've got those individual jobs. So, you know, that's not a dig in any way. As Wayne said, you've done really well to get 6 of them. You know, a lot of lads only have the 1, and they might have a letting agent, something like that. Just start accepting and that realization that working for builders and letting agents is not really a business as such. It's kind of like a job. And obviously it's good that you've highlighted you want to move away from that. That's the great first steps. And yeah, that's where I would start anyway. I would push those prices up a little bit and test the water, and see what happens. And you might find yourself having a bit more free time, but with a bit more profit. Sink that into more lead generation and start to grab those customers. And again, I'm not here to spend loads of time talking into better strategies with that small amount of time. That's something that obviously could be discussed potentially on a one-to-one with me or Wayne. But you obviously want to make the most of that 20%. It really needs to be on, because you've got your cash flow from the builders. So you want your scaling from the other 20%. So you can be very selective of that 20%, can't you? Then you actually, I want recurring work. I want work that's going to create more work off the back of it. You know, whether it's fault finding on boilers or, you know, just changing a socket for a customer or a fault find, whatever it might be. So
Agree. Hopefully we answered that question. As you can probably tell, we do like to go around the houses on the questions as they come in. So I think this last question that's there for now is, where is it? It's on the screen. The gold bit of information you wish you knew earlier. I think that's a perfect way, because it'll probably still take 5 or 10 minutes to discuss. But I think it would be a perfect question to sort of end. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to?
We have got one more though.
Is there? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to do that one first then? Sorry, I must have missed that.
Let's just flick Mark's onto the screen. It was just off the back of what we were saying before. It might be a quick answer, to be fair. So as someone who, after doing the boiler stuff, moved on to emergency stuff and was mostly doing plumbing because I didn't have my gas straight away. I think you've kind of already answered your own question. So shit up for doing that, Mark. It would be a slightly lower cost for the heating. For the boiler breakdowns, that's how we run it. Slightly lower cost, because you want to get in that door, because, you know, 80% of those fault finds are going to turn into a repair. Low cost entry when it's something that will create jobs from jobs. Something like a toilet repair, I would ramp the price up for the call out, 149, 179, 199, whatever you want to do, whereabouts you are in the country. And then say, you know, you're going to get and flip those figures. Plumbing maintenance is probably going to be an 80% fixed rate. Boiler is going to be a 20% fixed rate on that first visit. So you need to charge accordingly. Obviously, plumbing's very generic. You know, bottom entry, toilet valve, side entry, bit of copper, check valve, whatever it might be. So you're going to get them mostly fixed. So shit off for you calling for delving in on that and dialing in on that, because that's why you need to do it. And that's how I would do it. I would charge much more. I know I'm slightly contradicting what I said before in terms of revenue generation per hour, but you've also got to factor in the additional work that's come from the back of it. So higher price for the emergency call out on the plumbing, but then make sure the customer knows as well. Statistically, we have, I know, an 87% first time fix rate on our plumbing work, because we carry an extensive van stock. You ring up, like say, toilet problem, we carry bottom entry, side entry valves on the vans, and on average. And you can build this into automation. So obviously we do a lot of work on software with the lads. Go and check out them other webinars, but you can build that into your automations that, you know, if you've booked in something like a toilet repair, we generally carry them on stock, and you're looking at around 25 to 35 pound for a replacement fill valve and check valve, service valve, you know, general toilet repair, plus the hourly rate, something like that. So yeah, that's how I would do it, Mark, how you've said.
Yeah, all makes perfect sense. Hopefully that made sense to you guys listening as well. So is there any questions that we've missed, or are we on to the last one?
Let's just have a look.
Alan's put, if I can make a recommendation, is that every single tradesman should read profit first? Yeah, 100%. There's a slight caveat to profit first, that I don't personally operate it in the percentage tone that it tells you in the book.
Another one as well.
Oh, have we? Okay, cool. I run profit first. So if you haven't read or listened to Profit First, please go and do it. The author, the audio book is top class. Mike McAllowicks is his name. I think I pronounced it right. Like I said, I do it slightly different. So I don't work on the percentages. I just use round numbers. For my brain, I prefer round numbers. So if I will just allocate money into the required pots, so the VAT pot, the materials pot, the overheads pot, and I just do it as a manual amount. But yeah, definitely agree. Right, Alan's other question was, if I was to ask a question about scaling, I currently have myself working full-time, one other full-time employee, and 3 part-time staff who work on a dedicated contract. Well done. I'm in hell of a struggle to try and get to the next phase of the business. I just wonder if you had one bit of advice in this session to offer. What would I do next? What would be the next step for me to start moving the business up and trying to be able to live a bit more than I currently do? Great question. Thank you for being so honest and transparent with the question. So it's very hard to answer when I don't know much, haven't got much context to it. But systems is one of the keys to creating that bit more freedom that you need. Automations is another part of that, and organization. So my question really to you would be, like, how are you managing the day-to-day running of the business? So Alan, I would love just to have a bit more of a conversation with you. We offer a free discovery call, so you can book in a call with myself or Andy, because I can't really answer that question with such little context to give you any real value other than what I've just said about systems, automations, and processes, and the organization of the business. The foundations, in essence, what we call in Off the Tools is the foundations of the business, and then coupled up with money management and time management, which complete the foundational sort of infrastructure of what we coach in Off the Tools. Those have to be firm if you want to grow. It's like building a house on sand, isn't it? It's not going to last. You need to build it on the rock, as the Bible says, because that will last, that will stand the test of time. So that's where I would be looking specifically with you, Alan, is where are your foundations? How firm are they? How strong are they? How big of a business do you actually want to build? And do those foundations match up with those ambitions that you have? Because they need to. So please feel free, Alan, to book a call in, and I'd love to have a little bit more of a further conversation specifically on you on that. Anything to add on that, Andy?
I'm just thinking you shit out for getting to that point, Alan, for sure. Like Wayne just said, you're much further on than most guys get to, and there's every chance it's a fairly small problem. So if you've got yourself like the other full-time employee and some part-time staff working on a contract, could it be a pricing glitch? You know what I mean? Especially if you've got, there's a lot of lads that come into the alliance and they've just started to phase in another employee. What I normally say at that point is, and again, this could potentially be relevant to Matt as well, of if you can potentially bring in another employee, phase out some of the very standardized recurring work. So whether it's a contract, like you saying, you've got, Alan, the building work for the builders, that you've got, Matt, if you can get someone on that's going to still make you profit. I know you're saying you only get $320 a day per engineer, but could you farm out some of the lower skilled work, whether it be first fix, plumbing, or ripping out, whatever, to perhaps a trainee plumber or a less qualified plumber who's only going to charge $200 a day to you, and you can farm that out, so you're still making a little bit of a squeeze on him, and then you can start to use your time to target different stuff or charge better for more profitable work. You know what I mean? So there's to just double back a little bit. Sorry, lads, I'm talking a bit more. the building stuff, the contract stuff, the letting agent, it can serve a purpose if you're doing it skillfully, because if you can firm it out, like I've just said, and free up your own time. And that's a lot of lads in the Alliance didn't let the letting agent contracts go. They just brought in another lad to the team who's costing you less than what you're making from that work. Then it frees up your diary in its entirely. You know what I mean? And then off you pop. So, and you can go and do your own work. So yeah, again, it's certainly a deep conversation where, you know, a discovery call would probably give a bit more time.
As you guys can probably tell, right, we're not very good at timekeeping, and the weekly Wayne's World sessions are meant to be an hour, and they can quite often go into 2.5 hours, can't they? So, you know, so if you have enjoyed tonight, please consider coming over and having a look. But let's get on to the last question. Before we do the last question, I'm going to do an offer just because it's a webinar. Anyone that wants to test out Alliance, we will give you a month's free plus a 1-to-1 call if you decide to join us tonight. It's only open for those that are going to take action today. And like I said, we'll give you 1 month free. If you don't like it at the end of it, we shake hands and we move on. As simple as that.
Yeah.
On to the last question then. Yeah. Are we happy to get on to the last question now, Andy?
I am. Yeah. Just a little bit more expansion on that. Again, it's just for lads who jump on board tonight. We're not asking for anything, not asking for any commitments, not asking for any money. Literally just come in and see what the Alliance is all about. We're so confident that you'll get value from it. We're not going to do the, you know, like,
we'll give you this.
We're not a certain highly talked about trade training business where we're going to tell you to run to the back of room and whatnot. This should have been a fault finding, Mark. So yeah, just come in, join. You can speak to the other lads. You can book the discovery call with me and Wayne. You can see what it's all about. And because one point I want to make on that is one of the big struggles in this game is not surrounding yourself with the right people. That's got to be the most common thing. You know what I mean? And the fact that you're all here shows that you're in that 1%. And we always use that phrase a lot with the lads. The fact that you've dragged yourself out of a very, like, it's an anchor, isn't it, being in the trades? Because you know how it is, you've had a tough week. You just want to dive in the pub on a Friday. Then you're surrounded by other lads who wanted to dive in the pub on a Friday. And you go, oh, it's fucking shit, this game. It's a race to the bottom. I've had enough. I'm going to do this. So, you know, I can't be asked anymore. But then there's lads like yourselves who float to the top and go, nah, there's a opportunity here to create something really, really strong. And again, that's what the lads in Alliance have done. So yeah, we will sort that out for you in a minute, boys. We will get that set up. We'll take a few details. We'll pass some details about how you get set
up. What I'll
do
is I'll stick my WhatsApp number in. Just drop me a message. Anyone that wants to take advantage of that, add me on WhatsApp and drop me a message, and we'll work out the logistics of how we can work that out. All right. Right. So, what is your golden nugget bit of information you both wish you knew earlier? So this could quite easily go for another half an hour. So I'm conscious of time and everyone's evening. So do you want to go first or me, Andy?
Go on, I'll let you go first because I've got a few answers to this. Actually, I'm struggling to get one single golden bit of nugget.
Yeah, it's difficult to know one thing. But for those that aren't aware, my first business it was actually my second business, but first business that was an actual business failed. Okay, and without it, I'm grateful that it happened because it turned me into the man that I am today. But the lesson from that is still the one lesson that I wish I had known, and that was having a real handle on the numbers of the business. So I know it's not sexy, I know it's boring as hell, but if you can't tell me now what your running costs are per week, per month, what profit you made last month, what the projected income for next month is, then you don't have a handle on your numbers. And for me, that is the biggest thing that I wish I had known earlier on my journey, because once you get clarity on the numbers in the business, good or bad, you know, and in my first business, you know, it was bad and I didn't notice it, and I just chose not to acknowledge it. And it led to many painful, probably a good 3 years of shitstorm, you know, that could have been avoided with the right guidance, with the right information. And fundamentally it come down to the numbers. You know, if I had known how to look at the numbers correctly and understand it, I could have made so much better choices, you know. And I was a 23, 24-year-old young man. I had 10 vans on the road. I had a bathroom showroom on the high street of the local town. You know, I had such a foundation of good there. And because of the lack of knowledge and the understanding, it basically made me have to lose it all. So for me, that's my number one nugget, is that you need to know the fundamental important numbers in the business. And yeah, so that's me. Andy, I'll pass the mic.
2 things I would say.
Bullshit. There'll be 4.
So I'm gonna be hack it and say one thing, but then like splay it out. So pricing is obviously so important, but it's a really nuanced thing. And I love the phrase, and I learned this off. I was told this off one of my first mentors. Price is what you pay, and value is what you get. And it's so relevant in the trades. It's so fucking relevant. Because, and we get this now, and I do spend some time in the office with the girls, and I listen to some of what the calls, because obviously, as I said at the beginning of this call, it allows me, the fact that we've both got live heating businesses allows us to, and little plug, I think we're the only trades training company that still have live businesses. In the UK.
That's by choice. You know, I don't need to have it. You know, and nor does Andy. We want to do it because we want to be relative. We want to relative. Is that the right word?
Relevant.
We want to be still relative. Yeah, that is I think it's the right word.
Relevant.
You know, we want to be active in the trades industry so that we can bring the best value. Sorry, Andy.
We get a lot of people, and you've probably all experienced this when you've done such a good job. You'll get someone who wants a cheap price. So they'll get a price off you, especially if you're using a fancy quoting software like we've talked about before. And they've seen the reviews online. They've spoke to girls in the office. If you've got them, you'll get them a price, and then they'll get a price off a cheap guy down the road, and they'll come back through. Oh, I've had this price. Can you beat it? So what they're saying with that is they want your quality at the cheap guy's price. So obviously that's price is what you pay, value is what you get, is what normally comes back to the customers, because we were quite tough with it. And a little plug for a book, nothing to do with us, but a book that I read quite a few years ago, the first real businessy type book that stuck with me, is a book called Winning Through Intimidation. And it's super relevant to the trades, because we all know customers will try and intimidate us by saying, well, you won't get the job then. You know, match this price or you won't get the job. That's the customer intimidating you. If you flip the script on that, you can be like, well, actually, you want our services because you've seen our reviews and all the other shit. So, and be willing to walk away from the job. You know, so many guys are too scared to lose the job that they will then do themselves a disservice by lowering the pricing. But what you actually find is and I've found this from listening to a lot of calls, by standing your ground and saying, no, we can't lower the price because we're bringing more to the table than other people, you find more customers, especially nowadays, will bring a bit more respect to the table from that. Yeah. And then the second one is one from Wayne himself, and it's going to be very relevant to you guys and very relevant to Matt, is your customers of the past are probably not going to be the customers of the future. And that was one of the things that Wayne said to me right at the beginning, and it's been stuck so much, even though I had, how many customers did I have when I started? 16, was it?
23 or something with it? Yeah.
Something like that, yeah. And even at that level, I was like, oh shit, well, I don't want to lose them. But that's very relevant, as I said to Matt, because you've got to scale up. You've probably been over delivering on value to your customers and undercharging, because it's something that some of the lads struggle with when moving on to the care plans. They find it easier for new customers to move on to care plans than old ones, and they're like, oh, I don't understand why, because we've worked with them for so long. It's usually just an over delivery on value with an undercharging on pricing, because you've always wanted to be the good local guy, like Wayne's 20 quid local old lady analogy. You've got to really think, well, actually, I'm got to be willing to lose all these old customers to bring new ones in on the right pricing structure who are going to buy into what we're offering, basically. Yeah. So them are the two big ones for me.
Cool. Lovely. We'll end it on that note, gents. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully you found some value in it, whether you're on the live or whether you're going to watch this on demand. And yes, I've really enjoyed tonight. And I hope you guys have
coming, lads.
Yeah, thank you very much for spending the last hour and a half-ish, hour and 20 minutes. Hopefully we'll see some of you in our WhatsApps later, and we can see you in Off the Tools Alliance. If not, please continue to listen. Please continue to listen to the podcast. Like we say, we do an episode every single week, completely free, across all different subjects. So on that note, I'm going to love you and leave you. God bless everyone.
Thanks, lads.